What's up, guys? I'm John Camacho. Thank you so much for watching. Today we are doing some season-long prop bets. We're going to be looking at the AFC player props, basically season-long yards, things like that. I love betting on these. I love having just guys in my corner that I can bet on all year. And because I, rank my fantasy players by doing by projecting out their season-long stats, it's actually really easy for me to go and look at the stats and say, hey, I like this, I don't like this. So we're going to talk about it, go through every team in the AFC, and just look at which prop bets I like the most on bovadasportsbook.com. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. It's going to be a long one. Let's get right into it. I'm just going A through Z, all right? So first team in the AFC, Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, over under 3,500 yards. I am going under. Looking at my rankings, I have him set to hit 3,274, 17 passing touchdowns, and 7 interceptions with another 800 yards on the ground. Lamar Jackson's a weird one because it's like he has been a top 4 fantasy finish he's been a top 3 fantasy finish just 4 times in the past 2 years. Now, last year's a tough one. You lose basically your entire stable of running backs in the preseason. Your top target is Marquise Brown, who obviously leaves, but beyond that, you didn't have a ton of great reliability outside of Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews obviously had a great season. We'll talk about him a little bit in a second, but I look at last year as kind of a down year for Jackson on a good team, but a very injured team. So I give him a little bit of pause. But you look at Lamar, it's just like, man, 3,500, very, very attainable for a quarterback in today's NFL. But I don't think that's what the Ravens are going to be. I don't think that's what Lamar's going to be. I have him significantly over. So this is one of those that I look at and I'm like, yeah, I probably would legitimately bet this. All right, because I'm going through every single main bet that I can look at. So not all of them I'm going to want to bet on, but this one, yeah, I think I would bet on this. I think I would take the under. I'm a big fan of taking under in season long. I know that's contrary to what a lot of people like to do, but I just feel like there's more elements in the game of football that can work in your favor when you're betting on the unders than there are when you're betting on the overs. Other guys can have better seasons. Unfortunately, injuries are part of the game. It's a real thing. You never root for injury regardless of money on the line or anything. I don't want to assume that, but I do think it's a real part of gambling, right? All right, next guy to talk about here, Mark Andrews, over under 8.5 touchdowns. I have him over projected, to be totally honest. I'm gonna have to go down on this, but just really, really quick, I have him for 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns. Now, part of that is I don't believe in Rashad Bateman. Didn't like him coming out. I just don't believe him making that next step. Sue me. He's not my guy, not my dude. I wouldn't bet that. I wouldn't do it. I don't, I wouldn't bet on Rashad Bateman to have that awesome year 2, which I know a lot of people are kind of hoping for. He's just not my guy. So for me, what does that mean? Okay, well, the most experienced, consistent, pass catcher on the team is still Mark Andrews. So I look at touchdowns and I'm like, yeah, 8.5, 9 touchdowns, 10 touchdowns. I mean, super, super attainable. I go over there, but I probably wouldn't bet that. Just being realistic with do you really want to trust? I mean, if I'm betting the under on yards, do I really want to trust Lamar Jackson throwing in the red zone? I don't know if I would, but as far as my projections are, I would. My official stance is over, and then hey, we talked about Rashad Bateman. Over under is at 825. And I have him projected out to 835. I have it right on the dot. I don't think that's a compliment. I don't think 825 is a compliment. I think I just told you how I feel about Rashad Bateman. If you liked Rashad Bateman, if you liked him coming out of the class, if you thought he played really well last year, which I'm not sitting here pretending to be some super, smart expert who studied every play of Rashad Bateman. I watched enough games to feel confident in my opinion. That's all it is. Just an opinion. I'm not a big fan of the guy, so I'm not projecting that big, huge step up. And also, he's not on our team that just, lends to that. But if you like Rashad Bateman as the number one wide receiver, you think he can get to 1,000 yards, yeah, bet 825 fairly confident, right? All right, let's move right along to the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Obviously, we got to talk Josh Allen first. Over under for passing yards is 4,320, and you know what that number means. That number means people have been betting the over, so it's been juiced up a little bit at 4,320. That is not a normal number. That's a number that, you know, it's probably going to be higher, maybe even by the time this is posted, which is fine because I have the under. 42-64 is what I have. I have 31 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. I have this team being really good. I do. I don't see them playing, you know, I don't see them having to be pass happy in the fourth quarter. I don't see them having, you know, I could see him sitting out the last 5 to 10 minutes of the game a lot this year. So that factors in a little bit. It's not a major thing, but it does factor in. And on top of it, like, yeah, 625 yards on the ground. Like, yes, this entire offense does run through him. So, like, my initial instinct is to say, yeah, that should go over. Not a bet that I would bet on, by the way. Like, I'm really, really close to that line in my projections. So, like, I could see that going either way. 43-20, again, not something I would bet on, but I do have him just under at 42-64 for the year. So, like, yeah, that's a tough one when it's like, yeah, too close for comfort there. Stephon Diggs, 1,200 yards. I have him clocking in just under that at 11:29. I can't bet 1,200 yards for Stephon Diggs. I just can't. That's too many yards. Love him. He consistently hits those numbers. He's not going to be that guy for me. So I'm going to pass on that one. Moving right along to Gabriel Davis at 850 yards. That is the over-under. I have him projected out at 972, just under 1,000 yards. Gabe Davis is one of those guys that, like my projection does not match how high I am on this dude. My projection doesn't match how much like upside I see for this guy who coming into his third year, really, like, this is the first year he's legitimately getting a chance to be the number two. Obviously, they bring in Jamison Crowder to be that slot receiver, but Jamison Crowder was never, you know, impacting Gabriel Davis ultimately. Like, they play the same position, but they're two different types of wide receiver. So I'm not worried about that acquisition. You know, James Cook, another guy that they bring in the draft, who's going to be that pass catching running back, because I don't think that they loved what they got from Derek Stingley, and then obviously the other running back on their roster, I'm blanking, Zach Moss. Not another guy that's like, you know, we've seen him have enough chances this year over the past, you know, year and a half, 2 years, that, like, I'm good. I don't believe in him. I don't think he's going to be there in the third down very often. I'm kind of going off track. Sorry about that. I'm just saying all that to say, like, they have new pass catchers, but I don't think that really, really affects Gabriel Davis and his production. So long answer to say, yeah, I'm all over. I'm hitting the over. I'm actually betting on that one. Like, that's one I'm highlighting and saying, yeah, at 850, that's too good. That's too good of a number. That's too great odds, in my personal opinion, that he can crush that. I think, you know, if he ends the season with 1,000 yards, I'm not shocked even one iota. I haven't projected 28 yards under that 1,000 yard mark. So, you know, 972, I really do think he can hit it. I think he can crush it. I also think, you know, I've projected for 5 touchdowns. I could see that going over too. I could see that 8, 9, 10 touchdown type of guy, just a dude who really just, you know, gets a lot of those type of plays. Obviously, maybe I'm over projecting just because the last game I saw him in, he did catch 4 touchdowns in an incredible game. So I don't know. We'll move right along to the Cincinnati Bengals. So with the Cincinnati Bengals, I am super, super, like, perplexed a little bit. I'm wishy-washy on this one, to say the least. All right, so I have 4 for the Cincinnati Bengals. All right, let's go right down the list. Joe Burrow is the first. I have him outperforming his line right now at 43.75, so 4,375 yards. I have him outperforming that by about 200 yards. So not incredibly far off, but I mean, that's a bad game for a quarterback that I have him off on. All that to say, I would probably bet the over there. I think this is going to be, slowly turning into the Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Taj Boyd show. All right. And that's a long name, so we might cut out the last two names there. But the Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase show makes a lot of sense to me as like where this offense is going. Joe Mixon, who's the next guy I want to talk about, he's somebody who scares me. He's somebody who, from a running back lifespan perspective, he's nearing the end. He's a guy sitting at 26 years old, which, like, so crazy that is, a line of demarcation for running backs in the NFL, but it really kind of is, right? So we're getting into the latter stage of his career. As unfortunate as that is to say, it's a fact. He's gone over 1,100 yards 3 of the last 4 years. Remember that 2020 season had some injuries, so not a great statistical year for him. Last year, getting just over 1,200 yards, which was a career high, and specifically all this is on the ground, which is what we're talking about here. I do think he'll be a big part of the team. I think he'll be utilized. It just really wouldn't surprise me if 850, 900 yards is what he comes in at the end of the year. Now, I say all that to say, I still haven't projected in that 1,100 range. I have him just under 1,175, which is his line. I have him at 1,075, which is his line. His line is 1,075. I have him coming in at 1,038. So I'm right in that range. I agree with the line. I think any lower and you almost have to slam the over for the average better. But I look at all of the other factors going in. Obviously, the team dynamic as a whole, I do think is going to shift a little bit. We saw it in the playoffs. I just think I know it's Zach Taylor coming from the Sean McVay system. Like, running the ball is always going to be a huge element of their offense. But I mean, we saw Sean McVay open it up a little bit more this past year, and I really think I think that's going to be the same case here. Too many weapons in the passing game for them not to be a very pass happy football team. So yeah, and obviously the other elements that I already talked about are a real fear for me. They really, there's no other way to say it. It's a real concern for me, in my opinion. Moving right along to the wide receivers, I'm just going to talk about Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, the top two, the young guns. Jamar Chase, 1225 is his line, which is, incredibly ridiculous line to put him at. I have him crushing it. I have him as my number one receiver this year, at least from a receiving yard standpoint. I have him breaking 1,500 yards this year. I have him absolutely crushing the competition. I have him just under 1,600 at 1,587. Now, I hold the right to, bring this down a little bit. I do understand that there is, there's a lot of mouths to feed on that offense. There's going to be situations where he is going to be shut down schematically, and Joe Burrow is going to have to go to other options, and I don't think he has a problem doing that. T. Higgins, Taj Boyd, great supplemental pieces, but man, again, it's tough for me to say, hey, go bet at 12.25. Hey, go get on Bovada and make that bet. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I have the over. Put a gun to my head. I'm saying over. T. Higgins just at exactly 1,000 over under yards. I do have him beating 1,000 yards, but just barely. I have him at 1,077. So 1,000 doesn't make me feel super confident. And again, if I'm saying the over on these two, you got to look at Joe Burrow's total yards and say, yeah, okay, Tom Brady threw for 5,000 yards last year. It's not impossible. It can happen. We've seen it before. We'll see it again. With that extra game, the 4,000 yard mark is kind of becoming a line of demarcation a little bit for quarterbacks in the NFL, in my opinion. Like, if you don't hit that, there's kind of disappointing as far as the season goes. Joe Burrow being just over 4,300 yards is not like a compliment to him. He is capable of throwing for far more, is what I'm saying. So again, with T. Higgins, I want to say over. Now, I will say I said Taj Boyd earlier. I apologize. I have Tyler Boyd at 665. I don't like that. Like, I like Tyler Boyd. I mean, he's always been a good player. He's a great number 2 to AJ Green. And really, when he had the opportunity to step in as the number 1, he did that to a certain extent. He was on a bad team, didn't get the national notoriety that maybe he deserved. But this is not a bad player. He is not a number 3 wide receiver on many other teams. This just happens to be a team that has really hit the past 2 years with great wide receiver draft picks in the first and second round with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins there. So I do have Tyler Boyd going significantly under what I think his expectation for the season would be. I think he was just under 1,000 last year. I know I've heard them talk on the Pivot podcast about them all wanting to hit over 1,000 yards. I also heard Jamar Chase talk about wanting the Triple Crown. So all these guys want to get fed. I think they're all going to eat this year. It's a tough situation to bet on because it's like, man, somebody realistically is going to hit the under. If you put a gun to my head, I would say, yeah, it's going to be Joe Mixon's going to hit his under, and the rest of these guys are gonna be significantly higher than that. Let's move right along. To the Cleveland Browns here, and Cleveland Browns. I only have one guy, Nick Chubb. He's the only guy that I could find on there that had a line. I think just with everything going on with Deshaun Watson and the quarterback situation. Yes, he got his games, but there's a lot of conjecture about the NFL, or the NFL is appealing. It's not conjecture, but there's conjecture about him and going to ultimately end up with that year suspension. So I think that affects both the receiver props and obviously the Deshaun Watson props, which, I mean, it 100% should. That's a real fear. But, Nick Chubb's going to run the ball either way. Line is 11.50. I have him crushing that at 13.12. And just like I said with Joe Mixon, you look at Nick Chubb. He has had over 1,000 yards the past 4 seasons. He has had over 1,000 yards the past 3 seasons. He was 4 yards short in 2018, his rookie season. 4 yards short. That's kind of unfortunate. Crazy they couldn't get him an extra 4 yards. Regardless, dude who played a lot of years at Georgia. He had that big injury in Georgia which set his career back a little bit. Going to be 27 this year. That's a fear. That's a real legitimate concern. And I'm sorry, when you're talking about season-long props for running backs, and really, it seeps into fantasy and everything like that. You look at the age of running back. You look at the amount of carries he's had. It's the reason no one's really high on Ezekiel Elliott, which we'll talk about in the NFC version of this video another day. But I see 11.50, and again, I'm giving you both sides of the coin because I have him crushing that number. As I said, I have him crushing that number at just over 1,300 yards. Part of that is the uncertainty with the team, and I think they're going to have to rely on him a little bit more. But it's tough for me to bet on a soon-to-be 27-year-old running back in the NFL. It really is. That's a hard thing to bet on. But, I have him on my fantasy team. I like the situation from a fantasy perspective. Obviously, I don't think Nick Chubb was thrilled with what's going on with Deshaun Watson. But from a fantasy perspective, it probably does mean more touches and better numbers kind of thing. But hey, let's move right along to the Denver Broncos. I believe the only other team on this list where we're going to have 4 players to talk about. And let's face it, the Denver Broncos are pretty fun to talk about. And another team that is really, really tough for me because I might just be too high on this team in general. Russell Wilson, his line is set at 4,050 yards. Another line that makes me think that might have gone up from exactly 4,000. So people might be betting the over there. I have him set it at 42.59. I have him crushing that line. I would have absolutely no qualms betting that. I could see him ending up with 45. I kind of thought I was being really, really judicious and cautious with that line. I thought 42 was kind of the floor when I was setting my rankings and kind of looking at the numbers. I really did. But hey, I could be wrong on that. Let's lead that back to the wide receivers. Courtland Sutton. Let's double dip here. Courtland Sutton sitting at 950 and Jerry Jeudy sitting at 915. I think both of those guys hit their over. I have Courtland Sutton at 1,081, so about 100 yards more, and I have Jerry Jeudy just sneaking past that over with 979. And again, these are 2 wide receivers that, again, I think I have them at their floor. I think they're both really good players, and Jerry Jeudy health has been a little bit of an issue this past couple of years, at least the start of his career. Well, I should say that for both of them. Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy both have had injury issues the past couple of years. Not been the most reliable wide receivers, but health assumed, it's hard for me to see both these guys finishing with less than 1,000. I feel very good that if I bet both of them, one of them is going to hit. Hard to know which one. My gut is Courtland Sutton. I've been a bigger fan of his just throughout his short career than I have been Jerry Jeudy, just as far as a physical ability. I do think the talent's higher with Courtland Sutton. That's why I lean that way. But you don't know these things. You never know who's going to fit with him. If Jerry Jeudy is the Tyler Lockett of of a Russell Wilson, yeah, it could be a lot more Jerry Jeudy than it is Courtland Sutton, but at the same time, Courtland Sutton could be the DK. I don't know. That's a lot of conjecture there, but a lot of good stuff, man. I really think this is going to be a very good team, and I feel confident betting the over on all of them. Last guy I want to talk about, Javonte Williams. I am so much less scared of Melvin Gordon than I think most people. Melvin Gordon is really the only thing that's going to stop Javonte Williams for hitting his over, which is at 925. I don't know if I mentioned that. I have him at 1233, so I really don't have a big issue betting the over here. Again, it's another guy that I'm slamming that. I am actively betting that. This is a running back that is hitting his prime on a team that should be good, with a head coach that I know knows how to run the ball, because he was offensive coordinator for the Jacksonville Jaguars when that offense was as good as it could be, with Blake Bortles behind the center, and then obviously a Packers team that ran the ball a lot more than I think people would expect, considering Aaron Rodgers was under center. But they had a good run game. They had good pieces. I see Javonte Williams fitting into that very, very well. I see this team utilizing the run. I just see this team being really good, getting a lot of yards and a lot of points, and I think Javonte Williams is going to be a big piece of that. One of my favorite fantasy targets, and a guy that I want to bet the over here. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but he's a guy that I am pounding the table for. I love the dude. I do think he is going to be a star this year. I think he's going to make a name for himself, and I think he is crushing 1,000 yards. His line's at 925. Go bet the over. Go jump on Bovada and bet that over. And let's move right along with the Houston Texans. And I'm going to change it up here. I've been starting with the quarterback the whole time. Let's talk about with a wide receiver in Houston. Brandon Cooks, man, I think his line is a little disrespectful at 950 total receiving yards for the season. I disagree with. This is a guy who has had one season since his rookie season where he was under 1,000 yards. That's right. I know he's moved around. I know this is a guy that kind of has a weird taste in a lot of people's mouths for just the way his career has been. Yeah, it's been a weird career. Started out with New Orleans, traded to the Patriots, traded to the Rams, and then traded to the Houston Texans. So teams see the value in him, but it is strange. There's no doubt about it. Doesn't matter from a statistical perspective. This is a guy who is really the main option for Davis Mills, and he's had more statistical success than DeAndre Hopkins has had in Arizona. Now, I'm not saying DeAndre Hopkins wouldn't have more success if he was in Houston versus Brandon Cooks. I'm not saying that at all. There's no way to know that, but at least from a statistical standpoint, we can look at what you can look at what Houston did as technically an upgrade versus where DeAndre Hopkins is in Arizona. And again, I don't honestly believe that. I think DeAndre Hopkins is ultimately the better player, but you look at the numbers, the really simple, how many yards did he get numbers. Why is this line not at 1,000 at the very minimum? This line doesn't make sense to me. I will bet the over there. It does make sense just because it's the Houston Texans and people are scared. I don't care. Let's move right along to Davis Mills. I have him projected in at 38.40, which I thought was fine. I didn't hate that line. Granted, I'm giving him credit to start the full season. I'm giving him credit to be a pretty okay quarterback at 21 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Maybe I'm giving him way too much credit. Let me know in the comments. I could be too high on him. I don't feel like 3,800 yards is ridiculously high on a guy, but maybe I am. And if I am, I am. But the line for Davis Mills is at 34.50. I like that over. I really do. I like that over. I mentioned it earlier. The line of demarcation for a quarterback, I think in the NFL is 4,000 yards at this point. Didn't used to be. I get that, but like really, you should be passing for 4,000 yards if you're a starting quarterback in the NFL in today's NFL. There are obviously exceptions to that. I think we know those exceptions though. I don't think Davis Mills is that exception. Maybe, and again, I'm not even expecting 4,000 yards. I know he's going to be on a bad team. I know there's going to be a lot of struggles there. I know this is a second-year guy, out of Stanford, third-round pick. Like, not a lot of people are in love with everything about Davis Mills. I don't care. I think 3,500 yards is just incredibly attainable in my opinion. I'm betting the over there and betting on Davis Mills basically to start every game. I think if he starts every game, what does that average out to? Not a whole lot per game. Let's move right along to the Indianapolis Colts. Got the three-headed monster here with the Indianapolis Colts. We'll start with Javonte Taylor. Line is at 1350. Obviously, this is a guy who led the league in rushing yards last year, led the league in fantasy points and all that stuff. I have Jonathan Taylor having another career year at 1468. I would bet the over, but I won't just because I'm not going to bet on 1350. I have him projected at a ceiling, I think, which, I have no problem doing that. Like, I'm going to project guys based on what I honestly believe. I'm not going to just sit there and pick the dead average every single time. Like, these are my projections. Fuck them. They mean nothing in week one of the season. They absolutely mean nothing. But like for now, preseason time, this is rankings time for me. This is projections time. This is my time to shine here. So yeah, I'm gonna say that I really believe he hits the over, but I wouldn't bet it. I wouldn't be hopping on Bovada this for this bet right here. I might be for Matt Ryan though. All right, Matt Ryan, 24.5 touchdowns. Yeah, we're going touchdowns here. I have him at 25. I honestly I did that because I thought the line was really close, and yeah, I really wouldn't bet this either. I do think 25 to 30 touchdowns very attainable for Matt Ryan. This is like my dark horse Super Bowl team, which to be fair, it has been my dark horse Super Bowl team for like 3 years now. I keep getting burned on subpar quarterback play from a Colts team that should be great. It really sucks. And if Andrew Luck was on this team and healthy, man, they are just perennial playoff appears. Hopefully Matt Ryan can get them back to that place. Michael Pittman Jr. I have projected to have a coming out party. Literally last year was his coming out party, but I have him hitting just over 1,200 yards. His line is at 1025. He's the guy I'm betting on this year. He's the guy that I like. I really don't see him coming out of the season without 1,000 yards. Obviously health intact. So he is a guy that I'm gonna hit the over. He's one of those like highlight that, circle it, hop on Bovada, make that bet. Like he is one of those guys for me. Let's move right along. We'll go rapid fire here with Jacksonville Jaguars. Only got one here. Couldn't find one for Trevor Lawrence. Don't know why. I have him set at 3790, and I think that's a little bit of an insult. I think I'm really just looking at that feels like his floor. I think he could probably do a little bit better than that. I'm probably gonna ultimately change that. Actually, let's do that right now, live on air. We're gonna change that to him getting. How do I change it? Well, okay, I'm going to write a note saying that I'm going to change it because I have to do a couple little things in my program to change that, and we'll fix that later. I'm not going to worry about that right now. Christian Kirk, I have him hitting just under 800 yards. His line's 800. I'm not touching Christian Kirk. Don't bet on Christian Kirk. I don't care how much money they gave. There's a lot of teams where I would look at the money and I'd be like, oh, he's probably going to be really good, actually, if this team spent that much money. Jacksonville has spent, $1.2 billion over the past 8 years and on free agency, and it's significantly higher than the next team. I don't remember the exact numbers. I think that's right though. Christian Kirk is not a guy I would bet on. Jacksonville is not a team that I'm going to look at for season-long props. Certainly not in the over thing. But I would love to revisit that. You should check and see if you can find Trevor Lawrence on there. I couldn't find it when I was doing my research last night. Maybe he's on there now. But let's move right along. Kansas City Chiefs coming in next. Got two here: Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce at 1,050 yards. Yeah, crush the over. What do you mean? He's getting 1,000 yards. I don't care that he's a tight end. He's gonna get 1,000 yards. I think I thought I had him projected as floor at 1150, and the only reason I did that is because like I hate 30-year-olds. Anytime you hit 30, like I'm ready to kick you to the curb, and you know, it just like I put him at what I thought was his floor because age regression, and just like ultimately thinking like, okay, how much does Hill not being there affect his touches? Like does he start to, you know, he's been the best tight end in the NFL for seems like 5-6 years, so like at a certain point you start to wonder, right? I think he can digress, or he can, you know, deteriorate a little bit and still hit 1,100, 1,200 yards in this offense. Juju is a guy that like I secretly kind of like. I have him projected, I think, in the average range of outcomes at 823. There's not a line on it from what I could find on Bovada, but he's definitely a guy that I like. He's definitely a guy that I would certainly think about as an over candidate, just because I do think like, you know, he showed talent his rookie year. I know it didn't really work out in Pittsburgh down the line. There's a lot of pieces there, but I could see him fitting into this offense very well. And then of course we got to talk Patrick Mahomes. I have him at 45.90, which again is another one of those like, I'm giving the Chiefs credit for not getting I'm giving Tyreek Hill his flowers almost. Like I'm saying that Tyreek Hill affects Mahomes in a negative way by saying he only gets 4,500 passing yards. The line is 4,500 though, so I'm not touching it. I don't know how anybody could. Let's go to the Los Angeles Chargers. Justin Herbert is a guy who I'm a big fan of. I do think he hits his over of 4,600 passing yards. Would I bet on it? I have him ranked out at 48,996, so like just under 4,900 yards. Really, I mean, ultimately just under 5,000 yards. Tough to project a guy to go 5,000 yards, but like that's kind of where I am with Justin Herbert. I just have an insane season in my head for him. I'm going to rank these guys the way I really see it, and I'll give a range of outcomes that I honestly believe are realistic, and I'm going to go on the high side on some guys. I'm going to go on the low side of others. This is the high side projection for Justin Herbert, and I'm looking at it like I don't even think it's that crazy. I don't even think it's high enough, but the way my program breaks it down, I can't really get it much higher without really breaking it. So we'll leave it alone for there. Keenan Allen, his line is 1,000 yards. I have him crushing that. He's gonna hit 1,000 yards. He hasn't gone under 1,000 yards in games or in seasons where he didn't play at least 15 games his entire career. Right? So, you know, I'm looking at it right now, 14 games the first 2 years of his career was 1,000 yards in his rookie year, 2013, 700 in his sophomore year there. Had some injury issues those next 2 years, 2015, 2016, and then, you know, has been a Pro Bowler ever since from 2017 to 2021, only coming in under 1,000 yards in that 2020 season where he only played 14 games. And he was 8 yards under 1,000 yards. The line's 1,000. That again, that's just like I certain lines here, certain props, which I get it. I really don't get it. I don't get how like this one just doesn't make sense to me. You're the number one on your team. He's an established great player. I have him. I thought I had him at his like average like ranking at 1184, and you know, based on what he's done the past couple of years, 1184 is not insane at all. It's very, very reasonable. You know, going into year 10, he's just 30 years old. That just speaks to, you know, the value that the Chargers got with this dude. But yeah, like I'm all in. I'm all in on this passing offense. I am 100% all in on Keenan Allen. I wish I could have found a line for Mike Williams, who I don't have hitting over 1,000, but I do have him having a productive season and being a real touchdown monster as well. I couldn't find a line for him. Austin Eckler, 750 rushing yards specifically. Again, not a line I'm going to touch. Is a smaller guy who has gotten more touches than I think the team even wanted to give him, specifically on the ground, just because I think their depth at running back has not been awesome. Bring in Isaiah Spiller, who's gotten pretty good reviews. Apparently Joshua Kelly, last thing I saw is Joshua Kelly, their third round pick out of one of those California schools. I forget off the top of my head. Guy didn't love coming out, struggled the past 2 years, but apparently he's putting it all together in year 3, which, you know, makes a lot of sense. I say all that to say Austin Eckler is an incredible fantasy asset. I don't know, and I do have him ranked over 750 rushing yards, but like his value through the air is so significant that like I have a hard time really thinking he gets over that. Like I do think he'll get over it. I have a hard time betting that he's going to get over 750 rushing yards. And then again, add in the age, add in, the classic running back regression that you see pretty much across the board. Yeah, he's a guy that I'm afraid of, certainly. Let's move on to my Miami Dolphins. Got some lines here. Can't talk running backs because it's a four-headed monster with the running back situation. We really don't know what's going on there. Tua Tagovailoa. I want to go touchdowns. The line is set at 24.5. I think I have him at his honestly, I kind of think I have him at his floor. If he plays 17 games and this offense is as good as I think this team is as good as I think it is. I think 26 touchdowns is very, very, very reasonable. I am a certified Tua hater, by the way. Like I have my red card in hating Tua. It's not a club that I love being in, but they insisted, and I had to join begrudgingly because he's my team. He's my quarterback, but like I still have my questions about Tua, and I still think he hits 25 touchdowns in the season. I know that's complimentary. I just think the weapons around him, the way this offense is probably going to be moving, the way I've seen Kyle Shanahan like to throw the ball in the red zone enough that like I'm not worried about those red zone touches going to the running back too much. Obviously they're going to get theirs, but yeah, that's something I love. Jalen Waddle, I do think hits over 1,000 yards again. I don't think Tyreek Hill really cuts into that production a whole lot. I think Tyreek Hill, obviously I think they're going to be a two-headed monster, but I do think he hits over 1,000 yards. His line is at 925. Sorry if I didn't mention that. I have him projected just over 1,000, taking a slight dip from his rookie season, but still, having another strong season out there. And then Tyreek Hill, I have him at 1,100. The line is at 1,000. Again, I 100% understand if you look at the Dolphins wide receivers and you're like, nah, not worth the risk. And, I 100% see the bust factor for both of these guys. And I 100% understand why, like, if you're just not a Tua guy, which I'm not, why you would sit there and say, yeah, I'm out on both of these dudes. I'm going to move on. I'm going to go somewhere else and maybe even bet the under there. I'm not even saying that's the worst idea. I do have both of those lines being beat, but I'm also kind of a Dolphins fan, and I'm kind of a fanboy, and I might have rose-colored glasses with this team a little bit. So I don't know. That's a tough one for me to look at logically and be honest about. So I will take a step back from a logic perspective, and we will move on to the next player in the New England Patriots. I really just have one for New England. Damian Harris comes in at 775 rushing yards. With the way the Patriots use the running back, with what I think is going to happen with Ramondre Stevenson probably taking the main snaps, and just like that, how it kind of breaks down for running backs, I have the under. For the Patriots, like I would just never bet the over on a running back. And I know 775 yards isn't a lot, but I have him projected at over 100 yards less than that at 641, and I kind of feel good about my rankings there. I feel pretty, I feel solid that, like, barring injury, which injury is a huge element of the running game, but I think I don't know, that doesn't really scare me. I don't. There's not a lot of fear with me in this one. This is another one that, like, I really do like the under. I think Damian Harris is probably being overdrafted in fantasy. I think Ramondre Stevenson seems like the next name coming out of New England, and it's probably not fun being a running back in New England because the shelf life is so short, but they also drafted a Pierre Strong. I know this is a team that's going to want to run the ball. I just also think they're a team that's going to want to spread it out. Damian Harris, good player, but like I also just honestly think Ramondre Stevenson is a better player. So that's an element of this as well. Let's move right along. We're going to skip the New York Jets. So sorry, Jets fans, I have nothing for the New York Jets. I'll touch on them just very, very quickly on like what my lines would have been. I had Zach Wilson having a career year, bone bruise, meniscus issue in the first playoff game. I think is the main reason we don't have any lines for the Jets right now because when I was doing this research, there still wasn't a lot of known things going on. But Zach Wilson, I had him 4,600 yards. I'm high on the Jets. I am. I know that's ridiculous, but again, like I'm not going for accuracy. I'm going for like I'm putting my name on the guys and teams I think are going to be good. That's kind of what this process is for me. I'm going for accuracy a little bit, but all that to say, probably would have ended up having the over and wanting to crush the over with Zach Wilson, who I think is going to be a candidate for that next big jump, but the injury does scare me, obviously. Elijah Moore, I think, is a shoo-in for 1,000 yards. Again, another guy that I think I have him a little bit at his floor at just over 1,000 yards. Would have loved to see what that line is. Another guy that I think the line would have been a little bit lower. Breece Hall and Michael Carter, I'm expecting more of a 50-50 split than I think fantasy people are. I know Breece Hall is a popular name, and again, like I kind of said the same thing when Jonathan Taylor, his rookie year, right? And I was ultimately wrong, but like I was sitting there saying like, hey, Marlon Mack exists. Like I'm not just gonna completely write off Marlon Mack. Now he got hurt that first game, and there's just no way to know how that season was gonna go. But even after Marlon Mack got hurt, Jonathan Taylor was still, it seemed like, on a pitch count and all these things. So like yes, the rookie running back is a position that I absolutely love to exploit. It's something that like you see guys come out year one and be very, very productive, but it is by no means a sure thing. Breece Hall, just a guy that like, yes, I really like and I want to get in my keeper leagues and I want to look at, but like I have him just under 800 yards. He's not a guy I'm going to bet on season long. That's just not where I'm at with him. Last guy maybe you could find a line for. I doubt. Garrett Wilson. I do have having a pretty solid rookie season at just over 60 receptions for just under 800 yards. So solid rookie season. But I doubt you're going to find a line on a rookie. At least I wasn't able to find a whole lot of lines on rookies. Moving right along to the Las Vegas Raiders, which I now realize is probably out of order because I have them technically ranked as the Oakland Raiders. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Las Vegas Raiders, Derek Carr, 4,400 yards is the line. I have him at 4,451. Not touching that. Love that line. Feel good about that. I don't know. I look at the line and say, oh, I'm right on the line, and look and feel very happy about like my projection just because it tells me, hey, I'm not crazy. Davante Adams, 1,200 yards is the line. I have him coming in as my number 2 wide receiver on the year from a reception yards perspective with 1,400 receiving yards. I think saying 1,200 is the floor for what he can do. I look at this team as a whole. I look at what they spent to get him. I do think McDaniels is going to treat him like Randy Moss and just use him all over the field. I do think the Derek Carr connection is something that I'm a big believer in. I just think everything is set up for them to have a big season. We saw it last year, a handful of examples of first-time wide receivers moving to another team and just balling out year one. And now it seems like teams aren't nearly as scared to make moves for wide receivers as they ever used to be. With this season, seeing some big acquisitions, Davante Adams being one of the biggest. And yeah, I do think they're going to come out of the gate, just absolutely on fire. And I think this is going to be a real conversation all year about Davante Adams as, one of the top performers in the NFL, and people start talking about him as one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. I think that's where we're going to get to. Hey, there's 25 top 10 wide receivers. So I don't know. I think he's more than capable of it. And I think he's more than capable of, or more than deserving of being, among the elite of the elite in a really, really good wide receiver era in the NFL in general. But let's move right along to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Najee Harris coming in at 1,100 yards on the line. Again, I do think he's going to be the workhorse. I don't really see a scenario where he's not. I think this quarterback room is going to be fine ultimately. I'm not like deathly afraid of the wide receivers in Pittsburgh, and I certainly I would look at them to make bets on, even though Deontay Johnson is a guy who I have going under this year, which maybe is an insult. I just think there's a lot of mouths to feed on that wide receiver room. Anyway, I say all that to say, over with Najee Harris. Let's move on to Deontay Johnson. 950 yards is the line. And another one where, like, I could see a lot of people looking at that and being like, that's an insult. I actually have the under. I put him at his floor, ultimately. Like, that's my only excuse. I put him at absolutely what his floor should be. And ultimately, I really just looking at it, I'm probably even a little bit too low on him. But no, I mean, I have him getting about 20% of the receiving yards. I feel good about that. I have the team as a whole throwing for just under 4,000 yards. So yeah, I don't think I'm crazy. He's a guy who is very good at getting opening in the short to intermediate, very crisp, great route runner. But they have other pieces. George Pickens has been balling. Chase Claypool is not a guy that I've forgotten about, and I know the rest of the world has. But I do think he'll be a solid number 2. I don't know. And I think with the run first mentality, maybe Deontay Johnson not being the number 1 target every single time on second and third downs like he was last year. Maybe he still is. I don't know. I'm just not ready. Not a line I would bet on ultimately, just because I do see a world where he hits that over. Like I said, I pretty much projected him at his floor, but I could certainly see that going over. I'll leave it at that. Make your own judgments. That's one where it's like I think I might have talked more people into betting the over than the under. Just with hey, disagree with me. That's fine. You should. All right, last one here. Looking at the Tennessee Titans, another team where I look at certain things here. I'm like, I kind of want to hop on Bovada and make a couple bets here because Derrick Henry is sitting at 1350 and I have him at let me find the Tennessee Titans here. I have him at 1300 and I thought I had him at his ceiling. I think Derrick Henry's another guy like I kind of want to bet the under. He is a freak athlete. He's a freak athlete. I get that. He's not even an athlete. He's just a freak human. But injury last year definitely scares you. This is a guy who didn't have the craziest burst and explosiveness to begin with, which maybe that's almost a positive. But again, another guy getting into that age range of running backs where you start to worry, you start to expect a decline just because we see it every year. If anybody could break the mold, it is a Derrick Henry, to be honest, just the way they run him, his size, his ability. Yeah, I could absolutely see that. I think at 1350, I know is a tough one to bet the under on, just because you know how the Tennessee Titans like to use him, and really, Dante Hilliard, Hassan Haskins, Jordan Wilkins, those are your backup running backs. So you're still kind of locked in on a Derrick Henry, 95%. What is his rushing percentage versus the rest of the team is going to be pretty significant. So I don't know. I might have just talked myself back into the over. I'm sorry. Maybe you don't hop on Bovada for this team either. Actually, yes, you do, because I want to talk about Robert Woods. His line is at 775. I know he's coming off the ACL injury. I see Robert Woods as a guy who should get over 1,000. I have him projected as floor. I have this team projected at their floor, I thought. But then, I look at the line and they're believing in where my floor is, basically. And I'm going to sit here and say, well, I'm going to bet on me being wrong versus the absolute floor hitting for a team that's been good the past 3 or 4 years with a good coach and all these things. But I have Robert Woods at just under 1,000 yards. Like I said, I thought that was his floor. This is the only proven wide receiver on this team. I know they have Treylon Burks. I know they almost have to make that work because they traded A.J. Brown for him. I'm not as worried about that as I think, a lot of people are. Treylon Burks is going to progress. He's going to be fine. I don't think he really eats into a Robert Woods production who, he should be the leader in the clubhouse. Ryan Tannehill and Robert Woods should have a good rapport. They're both professionals. They both, I expect that. I do expect 1,000 yards from Robert Woods. I think 775 is an insult. Another one where I'm circling that and saying, I will 100% bet the over there, because I really do believe in that over. All right, let's last one I have, Ryan Tannehill. I'm not going to do yards this time. Let's switch it up. Let's go touchdowns. They put him at 21.5, so over under 21 and a half touchdowns. I have him at 25 touchdowns and actually technically ranked out to 25.48, so I agree with that half almost. So pretty much four touchdowns higher than the line. I feel pretty good about that. I don't think this team is going to be as awful as everyone's saying. I don't think, I know Malik Willis had a pretty okay start to his first preseason game. As of recording this, I haven't seen the second one, but I'm not scared. I know he had 3 interceptions. I get it. Everyone's down in Ryan Tannehill right now, but like, he's still a starting quarterback in the NFL. He's still a veteran starting quarterback in the NFL. Like 25 touchdowns should be pretty standard for a veteran quarterback in the NFL. 30 is not crazy even, I don't think. Again, maybe this offense takes that significant nosedive, but I thought I kind of like locked that into my projections as far as like the possibility of a little bit of a nosedive, but I do feel like these lines are a little bit on the low end of the possibility spectrum for the Tennessee Titans. And all right, that is it. I got through that a little bit faster than I thought I would. I guess, I don't know. I talk a lot. I don't know any other thing else to say. Let me know in the comments what you thought about my projections. Let me know what you'll be betting on and what lines you really like for those season-long props. A lot of fun to talk about, a lot of fun to think about. So hey, let me know, hit us up, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.